Welcome back to AI 575 with Arrow. This is Autumn Clash. Using a Light Glide Ballista Pro for this drive. Bottom of the top green arrows on a horizontal line with the tip of a triangle of trees in the distance there. Decided to give it a little ace run because this was the first hole, so I figured I could just do a different tourney or restart this one if it didn't work out. But it worked out pretty well, kind of snuck through the gap there. I saw Johnny hit that line, and that was not his line exactly, so but I decided to try for it. Here my aim point was the bottom of the top green arrow again. It's like right at the point where the trunk of the tree meets like the branches. It's kind of the spot. And then I did a split disc hyzer with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro. Considered for a moment running this with Accurate Windbreak River, but at the time, the record for this course is 22 down. So I figured as long as I get the eagles on, I think it's 5 and 9, then I'd be fine there. So I just did full power with the Accurate Glide Pure there, and then I had the easy routine putt there. Aim point again on that last one was the, once again, the bottom of the top green arrow. I like this line because there's kind of 4 pairs of trees, and as long as you make it past the first half dozen, the first 3 pairs, even if you hit one of this last set of trees, you usually have a view at the basket for a manageable throw-in. So that's what I opted for here. And then lately I've been just going out of bounds or hitting a tree that doesn't leave me a very good throw-in option before. So here I didn't adjust the initial aim point at all. Glide Wind Ballista. As long as you stay out of the water, I think you've got to look, especially with the Glide Skip Ballista Pro. And I love this view right here, this gap. This is just about perfect. And then I kind of do a split disc and hyzer, and just hoping for a good skip. I haven't gotten the albatross on this yet, but I've come pretty close. But I mean, as long as you snag the eagle here, I think that's what you want for optimizing either this course or this tournament. So picked up the first eagle out of 4 that I'm hoping for. Here I like the forehand shot. I think it's probably the only line off the tee, or Dizzle will say the same thing in his video on this course. So aim point again is the bottom of the top green arrow, and I'm doing a Glide Wind Recoil full send. Just trying to sneak between these 2 rocks, and that should leave a pretty routine putt. There's a couple of trees that can give you some collision that will leave you with a tough throw-in situation, especially in like a 3-wind. So I think you want to get used to the spots where you're going to get collision on that drive, so that you can avoid it more effectively. There my aim point was the top of the middle green arrow, and I got a little unlucky here. I hit this tree, but then I got lucky, so better to be lucky than good. Better to be both, but yeah. And then I'm always using the bottom of the top band for my throw-ins, and treating this at about 80 feet is kind of the power that I'm thinking of, and then just playing the camera pan to try to sneak this one in. I try to make it right over the cage with all of my throw-ins, so I'm always aiming for the bottom half of the chains. Here, on this shot, I don't like to move the initial aim point, and the distance, I'm kind of splitting the distance between the right side of the disc and the right side of the curve. That's like a hyzer amount that I like, and whether you make it on the left side of that tree or over the top of the tree, pretty manageable putter throw-in, as long as you don't end up right behind the tree. But I like that line with the Glide Wind Recoil for that hole. Here again, I don't move the initial aim point that the game sets up. I just use a Accurate Glide Musket, or in some winds I'll use the Accurate Windbreak, but did a little bit of Anheuser to counter the 3-wind to make sure I stay out of the water. And I've only gotten trapped behind that bush 1 time, and I was in a league match, and that was unfortunate. But otherwise, you have a nice open view. With 344 feet, I'm using the Accurate Glide Musket here in this wind, and just hoping to park it pretty close to the basket. And this was pretty effective. I find with that downhill on the other side of that hill, if you use like a Ballista or a Recoil, it can be a little bit too much unless you're a little further back on the spot, or you don't have as powerful of a wind. With this 3 kind of headwind situation, my aim spot here is the top of the middle green arrow. I'm like parked right at the tip of this tree, and then I hit this line almost exactly perfectly. And as long as you don't get a failed skip, you have a pretty manageable, in this case, I'm feeling like, yeah, this one's mine. So this is just about perfect. And then I was a little worried that I might get collision on the branches right above me there, but I was thinking I wouldn't and hoping I wouldn't. I'm playing the camera pan. That's a little high in the chains for me. I like to be a little bit below that. But I hit both eagles and it was a good first run. So this wind I had not encountered very often or like at all, so I couldn't really quite remember what I wanted to do here. You can see me kind of searching. But I'm using the bottom of the top green arrow as my aim point right between those trees in the distance. Full send with a glide skip Ballista Pro, and once I release it, I'm like, oh no, this is not going to go well. I kind of hit my gap, but I'm like, oh man, this is going to go way past. And then I get super lucky on the tree backdrop. I was just like, yeah, what a victorious and delightful moment. And then I almost messed up the easy putt from 32 feet there, but I was like, okay, it's 3 out of 4 eagles, my goal so far. Just got a birdie out and hit that eagle on 5 on the back 9. And once again, don't adjust the initial aim point. Accurate glide musket, and this just phased so nicely. Even if you end up behind these trees, the trees are too skinny for it to really matter as much unless you end up behind those trees on the right. And with 369 feet, I decided to disc up and do the glide wind recoil. I think that'll kind of sneak me over. Even so, you can see I kind of go just a little bit past the basket. I got some pretty good ground action there, though, and a pretty easy putt. I know some people, and I believe Soul Food's one of them, they just enjoy trying to get it over the river. So it's definitely fun to go for, but I wouldn't use it in like an MP or PT match. So that's kind of my go-to line. Here you can see I'm not going to move the initial aim point again. Glide wind recoil, and once again you'll see I'm splitting the distance between the right side of the disc and the right side of those Wi-Fi curves, and this time it was a more successful drive. Sneak through those trees. This is kind of the furthest I'd made it past the basket, actually. 60-foot comebacker, but feeling pretty good in a 2-win. So on the right side of the top end, and then just playing the camera pan to sneak it in. Again, hoping always just to sneak it right over the cage. I like to be in the bottom half of the chains, and again, it's a little too high. Anytime you get in the top half of the chains, I'm always worried I'm going to get a spit out. Here, I'm using glide wind Ballista again, but this time my aim point is the bottom of the middle arrow. And full send, and yeah, I think this drive was more successful than the first one. Yeah, if you can sneak it through those trees, it's kind of perfect. If you end up behind one of those bushes on the right, I think you want to be practiced at putting, accounting for getting collision, and have an aim spot for that kind of a scenario. But there's also a little bit of fairway action you can get if you disc down to like an accurate glide musket or like a recoil in that situation. So you don't have to use a Ballista for that. Here, this is my go-to line. Aim point is the bottom of the top arrow. And I go a little bit too far to the left here, but I don't mind getting the bush all that often depending on the wind. But you can see this is one of those scenarios that I was saying, 87 feet and this 3 wind. This is not feeling like a gimme. It's feeling like something I can definitely make and usually do make. But I'm like, oh man, I can mess up the run here. So I'm taking my time with the camera pan, looking for the perfect spot. When the 3 wind's going left to right, I'm pretty much splitting the basket down the middle as my aim point in terms of where I am on the top end. And that just worked out just great. So I was loving it. I was like, okay, keeping the drive alive. So is this, I guess this would be 4 then, or 5, I don't know. Once again, didn't move the initial aim point. And this 1 wind, I just didn't really counter it at all. So I kind of get lucky. I have a little bit of a view, but I like to be to the right of this tree that I am, because then you have a better option. I think you're less likely to hit the trees on the other side of this. But now my main thing is just not getting collision with this first 2 trees in front of me, because if I do, I might go for a swim. So just trying to play for a very low shot with a lot of hyzer. Just to get over, and is probably not enough hyzer, but I was like, oh man. And then I end up behind this like bush and tree, and I have like a clear view, but in these situations sometimes, and I hadn't ended up here before, I was really nervous that I was either going to get collision with this bush, I wasn't sure what it was going to do, and or hit this like invisible tree on my right. I didn't know how thin or thick it was. So I'm really just taking my time, and you can see there's some leaves in front of me, and I was like, dude, if I get collision right now, this is going to suck. You can see the outline of the tree, so I'm just trying to find the right spot there to make sure I don't mess up either by bouncing off of the tree trunk. I don't know if you guys have done that yet, but it's pretty frustrating. Or getting like tiny collision with this bush right in front of me. So taking my time again, playing the camera pan, and neither happened. I don't get the tree trunk or the collision, so I'm just like, yes. So now I'm just trying to birdie out and close out this 22 under if I can. So Glide Roll Ballista Pro on this. I love this pink and purple disc. It's got kind of a sticky function that will operate on the ground action. Aim point is the bottom of the top green arrow, and again, you'll see these rows of trees. I'll point them out right now. There's pair 1, 2, 3, and then you have this last set of trees here. Usually don't go OB. I don't think I ever have actually taken this line when you hit all of those gaps. And then the bush this close is not going to affect it that much, but I still pull it up a little bit to make sure I don't like end up hitting the cage there on that scenario. So here, same aim point as before. Bottom of the top green arrow, right at where like the leaves of the tree start. And then I do a split disc hyzer. Try to end up on this ramp. I go a little too far to the right if you're gonna run this for an eagle, that like death butt eagle. But in this case, I'm definitely not. I'm just trying to get the birdie. So I'm gonna use an accurate glide pure, not at full power. Treating it, it's uphill, so you can see, but I'm trying to make sure that I definitely do not end up, even if I get unlucky with some bad ground action, I'd rather end up with a farther throw-in to have to make, but that worked out just great. And so then I got one more to go, and then this is the moment where like my heart's beating, and I'm just like, come on, Ty Lonely Belgian's record, 22 down, let's do this. Now with this 2 right to left win, I decided to take my ace line, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for 23 down. This is my line when I do it, and I put either not quite enough anhyzer on it, or I didn't get the right disc wobble tilt. Because usually I end up way to the right of this and have a pretty easy like inside of 60 foot throw in. So now with the 2 headwind from 104 feet, I'm like, oh god, did I just mess it up right now? I was too ambitious. But again, I decided to take my time, and I'm treating it like it's about this shot right here is a little bit uphill. I don't often end up this far left ever. If anything, I'm gonna hit one of the trees on like a forehand line. But it worked out, and I'll take the 22 down. This ties the Autumn Clash tournament record as of this posting. So I'll keep you guys coming with more B tier tournaments. Please like and subscribe if you value this content, and I'll catch you guys next time.